Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Agile Podcast. In this episode, Paul and I are doing a summary of one of our prestigious Pints episodes with the great Dr Sally-Ann Freudenberg, or Sal, as we call her. Sal's been a proponent of inclusive collaboration over the years, pushing the neurodiversity agenda. And among other great things that she's done, pushed the Agile field forward, for which we are very grateful. And we had a great conversation. So in this episode here, you're going to hear a few snippets of that conversation, and Paul and I reflecting on them and how we can take them forward and keep pushing things in the same direction. Enjoy it. Cheers.
Hello,
Mr. Watts.
hello, proper. After that faux pas,
After that
false
little-
start.
Yes, we're back. We are back.
It's a late one tonight.
I know, almost last orders at the bar, isn't it? Almost.
Yeah, busy day, busy day.
What have you been up to? Where you been?
Still making time for you. I was getting to know a new client today. So
Ooh.
a few leaders from a company that I'm potentially going to be coaching, and I did something else. Oh, I was talking about a new what's the word? Medium, I think. So I've been approached by a company about turning one of my books into another sort of platform / content channel. So started a bit of conversation about that. Did a teeny little bit of writing, and also discussing the idea of another book.
Another book.
But apart from that,
You make me sound like a right, time waster today. I've done nothing. I've had a day off.
oh, good for you.
Day off. I spent time with my family. That's high value, isn't it? That's value add.
Yeah.
We went to Ashton Court today.
Okay. Where's that? What is
For
it?
those people who don't know that, that's in Bristol. That's a large. I think I don't know who owns it, but it's run largely by the council. A huge green area in Bristol. You must have heard of the Ashton Court Festival, no? Music festival. No, near Ashton Gate, near the football stadium. But Ashton Court is a big kind of a manor house with huge grounds and deers running around, and very rural part of Bristol. But yeah, of all the years that Sabrina and I have lived in the West Country, and kind of that's only half an hour, 45 minutes away from us. I've never been to Ashton Court, which feels like when we got there, it feels like somewhere I should have been. But yeah. Never been there.
But you kind of don't, do you? You don't kind of do the touristy areas in your
No, you're never a tourist in your own backyard, are you? So we did something fun you'd like, which actually we should write down as an activity we should do, is disc golf.
Disc golf. Okay, is
Which
that a bit
is-
like frisbee golf?
Frisbee golf. Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, we had a great time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I need something new to beat you at. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So we've done foot golf. This is disc golf. So
I think you actually
I'm
beat
not.
me at foot golf, didn't you?
Huh?
You beat me at foot golf.
No, I think you won. Even with a bad knee, you managed to win. Even though your knee was about to fall off, you still managed to win. But
Was it a nice day?
Today
Yeah.
it was wintry. It was but then it got quite warm in the
Autumnal.
afternoon. Yeah, bit
I don't think
windy.
it's winter, is it?
Windy on top of the hill, but it was good, really good fun. The kids loved it, and I came second.
Well
But I was
done.
beaten by my wife
Yeah.
by 2 shots on the last hole.
Well, it's very nice of you.
I know.
I think
Good charity.
I think you're a better loser than your wife would be.
I'll tell her that. Oh, darling, Jeff says.
She's
Yeah.
very competitive.
Oh yes, yes.
Almost as competitive as my wife.
She likes to do her best. Anyway, enough of that.
So was that? Yes, yeah. So
we need to crack on.
Yeah, I'm going to open a drink. Do you want to go first? You go first.
Well, I've actually, because we're talking here about Sal, our chat with Sal, which we had last week, very recently. I've got the same drink that I drank with Sal.
Oh, good for you.
So I've got a bottle of Inch's cider, which has a special place in my heart. I used to bottle Inch's cider back in the day, in my year out before I went to university. And Inch's cider was made in a little village called Winkley. Don't laugh, Winkley, with a W, in Devon.
Well, I am not drinking the same thing. I am drinking an unsafe IPA.
Tell me more, Jeff. It sounds like a very agile beer.
Well, yes.
Or so not, as the case may be.
This is part of my latest batch of home brew, and I haven't tasted it yet. So, I've done it properly, labelled it up, batched it up. I've got a big case of it. It's a 5.6 American IPA. It should be. I've labelled this before I've actually tried it. So I did try a little bit before I put it in the bottles. It should be a gold colour with a slightly spicy citrus note with Centennial and Chinook hops. It's a great way to close out a sprint. I've told myself here. There you go. I'm giving myself little messages.
So it's a good way if you have sprint reviews or you a few drinks in the bar afterwards.
Well, yeah, I also put a little message because I might give a couple of bottles of these bottles to people. Only drink this if the team have carried work over to the next sprint or the product owner has dropped in an essential change request in the middle of a sprint. So anytime, really.
Thank you very much. Jeff wrote the jokes. So he's pouring it now. Oh, it's quite dark, isn't it?
Well, you say that, but I have this. It's not really because I made another one. I made two. So this is a relatively golden.
Oh, Jeff, is that in an Agile Pubcast glass? You're drinking that there?
Oh yes. And I opened it with an Agile Pubcast bottle.
Oh, you did. You were very much on brand today, Jeff. Very good.
Always working. Try the veal. So yeah, I've made this, and I made a dark, traditional English ale. So a dark ale, which I've called is dark side. So yeah, here is an unsafe IPA.
Cheers, mate. Have a slurp and tell us what you think.
I mean, it smells lovely. That is by far the best one I've ever done.
Is it?
I'm really pleased with that.
Are you?
It's room temperature, but it doesn't even need to be chilled. It's nice.
What strength is it, Jeff? Have you
It's 5.6 actually.
Okay, so quite not quite a session ale.
No. But it's unfacilitated and unpasteurized. Very nice. Very nice. Cheers.
Cheers, chap. Cheers.
This should see me. These two cases should see me through to maybe December. But onto the topic of why we're here.
Yeah.
Our good friend and inspirator, Dr. Sally-Ann Freudenberg.
Affectionately known as Sal.
Yeah. And we actually talked a little bit about how she's probably not as well known as she arguably should be. And I think one of the reasons for that is she doesn't really shout very loud about what she does, and she's one of those doers as well. She's stayed doing, and she came up the XP route rather than the Scrum route or the Kanban route or something.
Yeah, it's where she kind of as she's very much a technical background, isn't she? And she's had a keen interest in the technical elements, but particularly in the psychological aspect of it all.
Well, yeah, she's always been a geek. She quite openly admitted she's always been a bit of a geek. Still loves coding now a little bit, even though she calls herself retired. But yeah, she did a big thing on one of the first times I came across her, probably just over 10 years ago. She did a thing around conferences. So she's got an academic background as well. She's got a PhD. She's done a lot of studies, and one of the things she studies was pair programming. So she studied the psychology of collaboration and used pair programming as an example.
Yeah.
And we got a little clip of what she said about that.
Yeah, so I wanted to understand more about how pairs work together when they're pairing. And a lot of the kind of, I don't know if I want to call it folklore, but a lot of what people were saying about pairing at the time was, there's this role of driver and navigator. The driver works at a really low level of granular detail, and the navigator's thinking about the bigger picture and all that kind of stuff. So I think I went to 5 different companies and recorded hours and hours and hours of paired programmers dialogue. And then I transcribed and analysed 14,866 sentences of dialogue, broke up the dialogue in different ways to see whether, there are these 2 roles and they're distinctly different. And actually what it seemed much more like was the driver and navigator together negotiated this landscape of different levels of granularity and abstraction, which makes total sense. It'd be really hard to have a conversation if one of you was talking about syntax and the other one was talking about the customer domain kind of thing.
What I really love about that, even though I would not love transcribing 14,600 whatever sentences of pair programming conversation, is that it reminds me of a conversation we had on a podcast in Ireland about actually doing good experiments.
Yeah.
So what she did there was she took some sort of accepted wisdom and then just tested the hell out of it. So, well, actually, is this true? And got a significant amount of data, actually did the work, and found out that it was different. And that was part of her PhD.
Because we haven't pair have you ever pair programmed, Jeff?
So
no,
I would say
thing
no.
to it.
I would say, so what I have done is I've done some years ago. I did some sort of SQL and statements and things with somebody else there. They weren't really pairing as such. They were just kind of helping and checking and sort of coaching and mentoring me, really, rather than actually properly pairing.
Because I don't know. I mean, maybe I haven't. I'm maybe not a great example, and I've maybe not seen enough XP teams to warrant it. But I used to work with Laura.
Yeah.
You remember Laura? So Laura was XP, and she was a big advocate of pairing. I never paired with her.
You didn't?
No, but I think the closest I got to pairing myself was probably Cody. We'll call him Cody. Not because that's anyone else's name, but that's just his name. And I wouldn't describe. I don't think that was really pairing. In like I said, but as Sal said, in the classic sense, is that I don't think many people do pair in the classic strictest sense. I think it's much more fluid, and I think from my experience, it's much more. It switches much more often than you might realize, and you're both dipping in and dipping out of the detail on a lot more frequent basis.
Sal used the word folklore there, and I think you brought up in the conversation that the fact that quite a lot of people are still wary and sort of hesitant about pair programming, almost afraid, although they probably wouldn't use the word afraid. And I think quite a bit of that is down to this false folklore about what it is. And actually what people have done is they've made pair programming their own. It's evolved into something. There are a number of different ways of doing that, but following the basic principles. And one of the things that we talked about was another myth that's associated with pair programming, and which also linked into some of the wider conversation that we had as a whole, was around sort of introversion, communication, talking and stuff. So let's just play that one.
And the other thing that I found that I really, really liked was that more experienced pairs talk significantly less than less experienced pairs, which is interesting because at the time I thought collaboration, that's all about talking and chatting, and actually it seems like a really important thing to learn is when to kind of take a break, when to just have some thinking time, when to be quiet.
I wonder if that's got anything. I completely agree, and I'm not disputing what Sal's saying at all, because that's the basis of her thesis. I'm not going to dispute that. But I wonder if that's got something to do with flow of what I was going to mention. I wonder if the more experienced you are, if you've got two very experienced developers that are fully immersed in that kind of mode, where the conversation just slows you down, whether you're purely using fingers and eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're certainly you expect that in different arenas and different, certainly from an improv side of things, that kind of, you completely shut out what's going on around you. You're completely immersed. In this case, I imagine it's the screen that you see and the environment that you're in.
Yeah. And when you mentioned Cody, I tend to call him Cody because he's an Aussie. He was one of the least quiet people that I've ever worked with.
Yes.
But I would say the quietest he was when he was actually coding. And there were some people that he could really code with and some people that he really could not. And wouldn't want to, is more what I meant. But yeah, I think that fear of having to have your code judged, to be critiqued, to have a conversation about it, I think does put a few people off. But it doesn't have to be that way. And a lot of these conversations are a lot more nuanced, so they are a lot more non-verbal. There's, in my head, I'm thinking of a sort of analogy to that is, I'm thinking of two people that we used to work with. One person who would literally say, "Okay, I want to drive now." Okay,
I know who you mean. I know who you mean.
Take the keyboard away. Whether you
when I least wanted it, Jeff.
Yeah. And another person who, not coding but just talking, would be making noises when they wanted to say something. So you kind of felt under pressure to finish your sentence or keep going because you didn't want them to get their words in. But you can pick up a load of those quite subtle cues that something is waiting to be added to the conversation or to the code.
Yeah.
And the more you work together, the more you can develop those tacit conversations.
Yeah. And I think a lot of Scrum teams, so I've made my main background and my main experiences are with Scrum teams that dabble and have tried and kind of experimented with pairing. And I think I probably know more teams now that have tried it. They get some value out of it for a very short period of time. It's not the type of thing that you would do, start at 9 and then finish at 5 every day. It's just, and that was my initial perception. That's what XP teams did. But I don't think in reality, I think it's a lot more tiring than that. I think it's a lot more, it's got a specific use, and for small high energy, well, not high energy, maybe that's the wrong word, but focused sessions to get into the real heart of a bit of code or an issue or a bug or something like that. And then you can break it. You got to break out there because it is tiring. I think for many people, it's exhausting.
Well, Sal actually used that word exhausting, didn't she?
Yeah.
She knows more about it than us, so let's hear
let's hear what she says.
Obviously, people are doing ensemble programming, or some people call it mob programming, more as a whole group. And I think some of the things that we learned from pairing is probably still true about that, which are working together like that is exhausting. And even the teams that I looked at way back then that said, "Oh, we pair full time," nobody ever paired from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night because you just can't do it. But obviously, people are doing.
So that was another myth, right? It's another myth that put people off.
And I fell foul of that myself. That's what I really believe XP teams did.
But we actually took that myth and ran with it outside of pairing. Something that Sal sort of admitted that she felt a bit guilty about, and something that we've talked a little bit about recently, certainly since the pandemic, is how we were part of the movement that was helping people shift away from cubicle-based isolation and handoffs to very much open plan, noisy collaboration, post-its on walls and so on. And while we've tried to be a little bit sensitive to the people who felt less comfortable, and we were some of those people, we were people who did feel uncomfortable about being in a big group and standing putting our point of view forward, even writing on a post-it and sticking on. We felt uncomfortable about that. So we had a certain element of empathy for others in that situation. But we were part of that movement pushing the other way. And now, having heard so many people say, oh, it's just nice to come back to a little bit of quiet, away from all that noisy agile collaboration, that actually maybe we did go too far. And there is probably a balance. And we have spoken about having noisy time and quiet time, and collaborative time and focused time and so on. But that inclusive collaboration is for me one of the hallmarks of what Sal has really contributed to, highlighted, almost to a degree campaigned for over the last 8 years or so.
And obviously you could tell, and she spoke a bit about this during the chat that we had, that obviously it is a personal quest that she was on due to her, she spoke about some of the family of how her family was diagnosed with autism as well. So I think that obviously gave her that push, gave her that drive to investigate it, and find out as much as she could about it, to try and learn, well, what can I learn from this that I can apply to my professional life as well.
Yeah, let's pick one of these 2 clips. Let's see what this one is.
One of my children got an autism diagnosis, and in the kind of early days of that, when I was kind of reading about it, I kind of got very intensely interested in needing to know everything about it in a very Sal-like kind of way. So then I got to thinking about some of the really outstanding teams that I worked on over the years had people on them who were incredibly quirky and yet completely accepted. And some of those people were people who could come across as, who maybe like traditionally you think, oh, they're a bit grumpy. And then other people who are like incredibly flamboyant and just like loads and loads of different people in different brains. And that seemed to be really important to those kind of special teams. But then when I thought about all the work that I'd been doing as an agile coach, and I think a lot of that community were doing about, no, we need to make these open plan environments. We need to break down all the cubicles and everybody needs to collaborate all the time. And actually, that's just a different kind of monoculture. So it was kind of like, actually, we've been moving from this monoculture of back in the day when programmers all sat in cubicles and nobody spoke to anybody else, right over to the other extreme of everyone has to collaborate all the time. It has to be really vibrant and noisy and et cetera, and that just like in the other case, that just wasn't going to cater for all the different kinds of brilliant minds that we need.
Yeah, and I remember actually this was, maybe, what are we talking about, 6, 7, maybe 8 years ago, when Sal started doing talks at conferences about this kind of conversation that probably needed to happen in a lot more organizations and a lot more teams. That kind of like the bystander effect, if you like. As soon as one person got on a public stage and said something from personal experience, it opened the floodgates for other people to say, yes, that, what she just said. And I think it was such an important thing. And a lot of teams have benefited from that, as well as individuals have benefited from that.
And I think it's weird, isn't it? Especially in our industry, the people who, I suppose, because we put ourselves into this category, but many of the people that stood up and, like you said, were kind of evangelizing this new open, collaborative, noisy environment. And you and me both, like you said, we wouldn't be the first people to do that ordinarily. And I think it was quite refreshing. And what Sal's, especially what Sal says, and how she brings that she's certainly trying to be more, open my eyes to being more inclusive of everyone. And many people in the software industry needed to hear that. They needed to know that it's okay. It's not just 9 to 5 working on a whiteboard and just shouting at each other in that kind of hubbub environment. It doesn't have to be like that. And she uses the word, which I like really well. She says about these blended environments, which, like you said, they've got opportunities, they've got open plan spaces to work in, but they've also got breakouts, they've got quiet space, they've got focused times of the day where you can just, it's just protocols so you can be left alone, whatever you need, but it's got to be a mix of both.
Yeah. The just the idea of, well, it made me think, without wishing to stereotype, I would say there are more people in the software industry that would classify themselves towards the introversion side of the scale than the extroversion. Okay, I might be wrong.
Yep.
That's my instinctive calculation. And despite that, a more collaborative, extroverted style of working has gathered pace and has become the dominant style.
Yep.
So even though people find it uncomfortable, won't really enjoy it, do it, and it's worked. So in my head, I'm thinking, why?
Mm-hmm.
If people are generally resistant to change, they want to avoid pain, they want to avoid physical discomfort, they want to avoid social rejection and social ostracism and so on, why would they work this way?
Yep.
And that tells me that they realize the value in it despite the discomfort.
Yeah.
And I've said to many people that being part of an agile team is a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
There is a sacrifice in it. You have to let go to a degree of your all of your selfish goals. Not all of them, but certainly you can't have 100% of your selfish goals. You have to put yourself out there a little bit, not completely, but you will have to put yourself out there, and you're recognizing that other people are doing that as well. But the return, what you get in exchange for that, should, and I would say vast majority of cases does, significantly outweigh what you put in, both in terms of purpose, in terms of belonging, both in terms of output, quality, all those different things outweigh the small. I shouldn't say small, because for many people it's not small, it's sacrifice.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But it's very easy to focus on those things, isn't it, that we find uncomfortable, and we it's the magic ratio, isn't it? It's 5 negatives. It's 5 to 1. We remember the negative stuff. We remember the stuff that hurts us. We remember the stuff that's painful for us. We tend to forget all the benefits that we're gaining from it.
Yeah. And it declines over time, right? As with anything that it is uncomfortable, the more you do it, the less uncomfortable it becomes. It's not, me public speaking, it's not something I'm ever going to think, do you know what? I absolutely bloody love this. Can I do it every day, please? I'll still get nervous. I'll still have a little bit of stress, but nowhere near what it was before. And what I get out of it outweighs it. I think for me, so Sal is, if I was to choose a couple of words to describe Sal, I would choose intellectual, calm, and collaborative. Those would be my 3. So actually, I'll probably get 3 C's: clever, calm, and collaborative.
Nice.
You get 3
nice.
C's. And I had a theory that I put to her based on her background.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, one of the things about diving is the better you get at it, the slower it is. It's like the laziest sport ever, because as your buoyancy gets better, you don't even need to really kind of fin with your feet very much or anything, because you're just sort of in mid-water, carefully looking at, and again, the more interested you get in the marine, the more you start liking, the big things are really cool, but you start liking the really little things. So you get, in a way, you get lazier and lazier as you go along, but it does become more, you've got this very gentle, slow breathing happening. It's not too noisy apart from the sound of your own breath. And although the environment can be quite busy and there can be quite a lot going on, it definitely feels almost meditative.
So her background as a diving instructor, my hypothesis was that influenced her ability to stay calm in an agile coach role. You've done any diving?
I've done it once. I wouldn't say it was calm.
No.
But I think that just shows, doesn't it, that that's nerves. Obviously, the with experience. And I remember the instructor when I did diving that he told me you will use far more oxygen than you actually need because you're nervous. You'll be heavy breathing basically through the regulator. Is that the right word for it? But yeah, so it just shows that I think we didn't really ask her how long she was diving, but I got the impression she'd been doing it a long time and she was very experienced. So with that experience brings that sense of calm and her environment. I imagine it is a very cathartic place to be because there's hardly any sound, isn't it? You're completely immersed in water, and everything's like she said, everything's slowed down, everything's amplified in so much as your own. Apart from your hearing, everything's much more amplified.
Well, they say about great sports people and I think other people as well that things seem to feel slow for them. It doesn't happen too fast, doesn't overwhelm them. I see that when we've worked together, when I've seen her facilitate a room, when we've pair coached and things, see just the calmness. I think that comes through in her style, and like it can't have been a coincidence, in my opinion.
She's got a very calming voice, isn't she? I imagine she, in a facilitatory sense, she could diffuse. I don't think I've ever been in a session where Sal's facilitates. I've seen her present, but I don't think I've seen her facilitate. But I can imagine that she has the ability to really slow things down again and diffuse even the most tense situation.
Well, I put this to her, and I don't think she remembered it. But there was a time many years ago when we were doing something together, and I couldn't really remember the specifics, so that didn't help her remember. But I was putting forward my view on collaboration, possibly even giving a definition. And bless her, Sal managed to correct me in the most tactful way I've ever been corrected in front of a group of people, without making me look silly. She's got a PhD in collaboration, so she knows what the hell collaboration is, right? So she couldn't let it go because it's kind of a professional, thing. So she managed to do that so well, so calm, no diffusion needed because she dealt with it so well. And I didn't leave that feeling any kind of resentment or. But
it's obviously stayed with you for some reason.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hate making mistakes, but also just that view of.
But how she did it, how she went about it.
Yeah, whenever I see something good, I always think, could I have done that?
Yeah.
And now that I've seen it, do I think I could do that? I think that's possibly one of those things that I've logged as, if I can achieve that, I would be a better human being, not just a professional.
Yeah.
So it's I believe everyone. There's some ancient Greek or Roman person who was known for saying everybody you meet has something you can take from, not as in steal, but they have something about their character, their personality that you can learn from. So you can get from every person you meet. And Sal has a lot, so that's definitely one of those things that I would take from her. And actually, so we did ask her. Put her on the spot, which is a little bit unfair, but we did ask her for her definition of collaboration.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Ooh, it's a few years since I've been asked that. So one of the ways that I remember talking about the difference between more of a cooperative way of working together and a collaborative way of working together is if you think that you're with somebody else and you're doing a crossword together, and if you said to that person, well, look, I'm going to do the down clues and you're going to do the across clues, and then we'll work out where they overlap and where the problems are, and then we'll fill the whole thing in. That's more of a cooperative approach than collaboration, and that collaboration is more kind of, let's read out one across, let's discuss it, let's think about it, maybe quietly a little bit, maybe talk about it a little bit until we agree together on what we want to put in for that word and how we want to move, what we want to move on to next and do next. So
I can't help but think about how Scrum and sprint planning was defined, and it was set up really for cooperation, but it was intended to be collaborative.
Go on,
Well,
explain.
how we were taught sprint planning all those years ago was that each member of the Scrum team would sign up for tasks on the backlog that they were going to work on.
Yeah, and I would be the one who would always walk up first.
Yeah, I'll cherry pick that one. Thank you very
I
much.
want to do those, and everyone else would kind of grimace. And Paul's up first. He's taking all the stuff that he wants to do.
Yeah. So most Scrum teams, I would say, the best they get to is cooperative to begin with, because some people are doing the across clues, some people are doing the down clues, to use Sal's metaphor. But the best teams don't. They'll effectively mob or have mini mobs or sub mobs. So okay, we with our skill set can get that piece of value done. And once we're done with that, then we'll think about what's next. And I think, so you can't go back and change the past, and you can only do the best with the information you have at hand. But if I had the information that I had from Sal back then, I would have been teaching sprint planning a lot differently.
Well, I think even now, Jeff, I'm guilty of a little bit of this in terms of, in my Scrum training, I'm talking about people ask me how to sprint plan and things like that, and how long should it take?
Yeah.
And there seems to be a desire for things to be faster, things to be quick. Yeah, how can we get this horrible planning session done as quickly and as painlessly as possible? And what you've described there lends itself better. If you just say, you do story A, I'll do story B, you do story D, then we're sorted. We can be done in 10 minutes. But what takes time is to then let's just look at story A, and let's talk about all the parts. Let's talk about how we're going to design it. Let's talk about how different, not just how we're going to design it, but how shouldn't we do this? What's the wrong way to do this? So we can make sure we know what the right way is. That takes time. And that was, when you think back to what Ken used to talk about, that was what sprint planning was. It was much more slow, dare I say it. And it's that, like Sal said, it's that diving thing, isn't it? It's slowing things down.
Yeah. She used a really good phrase, actually, deadline junkies.
Yeah. That
we're deadline junkies. And I think, you think most of the office environments that we've been in, it's very much, when is it going to be done? When do I get my thing? When can we, let's minimize the amount of time. Let's get through this really quickly. Let's get through this really efficiently. Bang out all the waste. And I think that crept into all of the ceremonies as well, right? Can we do a retrospective in half an hour? How short can we make sprint planning?
Yeah.
Just stopping and thinking and talking is something that sounds brilliant at creating an environment for. Something that
I think it's all linked. So if we do find that level of collaboration uncomfortable, then we're more inclined to want to speed it up. So I think the two are linked.
True. So it's about making it comfortable. I
think a lot of people, I'm mainly talking about me, is that if we can prepare for that, we know we're going to have a 3-hour session of fairly high intensity collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
But you can have the afternoon, you can sit, you can take some time out this afternoon. If we know we've got that retreat afterwards, we can kind of cope with that. It's why I need to sit, as I've said many times before in these podcasts, can't speak, pubcasts. After a full day's training, I'll just need quiet time. I just need to sit in my room or sit watch in front of the TV. Leave me alone.
Yeah. Someone else who was brilliant at collaboration. And another reason why I wanted to talk to Sal is because someone that we had in common and was one of my favorite human beings ever, not just favorite agilists, but favorite human beings ever, Gene Baker, who was author of Collaboration Explained, one of the first Scrum trainers, Scrum coaches, voice of reason, community builder, and basically all-round good egg, who died 4 years ago.
Well, I'd probably say more than that, Jeff, now.
And so we wanted to spend a little bit of time just reminiscing, because to be fair, if Jean was still here, she would have been one of my first people that I would have been getting on this podcast, and she would have jumped at it because she was one of the most generous people. So we asked Sal for some of her favourite memories of Jean as we were talking about that. So we'll just quickly play that one.
So my favourite memory, very early on in me knowing Jean, I was at a retrospective facilitators gathering, and at the gathering, it was a session that was about politics. The idea, I think, was that it sort of set you up to behave politically in teams against each other. And Jean and I decided really early on that we were just going to break the bank. We were just going to ruin the system so that everybody could win together. And I like that. And I always felt that about Jean, that there was something a little bit disruptive in the way that she thought that I really, really liked.
So, yeah, you see, you hear people say that they join a company because of the leader.
Yeah.
Well, Jean was never the leader of the companies.
No.
Officially, she would never held that sort of position of power or authority or responsibility. But so many people joined a company, considered joining a company, and I was one of them who travelled thousands of miles to potentially join a company. One of the reasons was because Jean was there, and she. I know you can remember us walking down a corridor past a room where Jean was teaching, and in the middle of a course just shouting out hello to us.
Yeah.
Running out to give us a hug.
That was probably 2006. That was, Jeff. I imagine Minneapolis, probably.
Yeah. So yeah, we wanted to have a quick chat about. And if you didn't have the benefit of meeting Jean, that's a shame for you. She wrote a really good book, one of the first books on collaboration, which has got so many tips in there that you wouldn't be able to count them. So check it out. And
yeah, I think
Jean.
I think we should. We're not going to end now, but I think we will take a pause here to raise a glass to Jean, because I think 2016 she passed away.
Okay.
And I think, like you said, I think if she was here for this for these series of prestigious pints, I think she would have probably been the first name on our the top of our list straight away. And I'm, like you said, I'm pretty sure she would have said yes to agreeing to come on and having a chat. So we do miss you, Jean. We do miss you.
Yeah. So Sal was one of the people that I knew Jean well, partly because they inhabited that world of collaboration so closely. And they also had that similar kind of personality where they were a little bit naughty, but for good reason. Disruptive, I tended to call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we
playfully disruptive.
Yeah, playfully disruptive. Nice one. And always giving. So she was always, whenever she created content, she put it out there. Didn't care about copyright, whatever. You want to use it, you can use it. Brilliant. So great influence there. And then we put Sal on the spot again.
Yeah.
Towards the end. I mean, we were nice to her. Don't get this wrong. We were nice to her. But we did put her on the spot and said, so given how people are faced with this challenge of trying to make their teams, their organizations more inclusive, it's not easy. Even if you want to, it's not easy. So what tips did she have for people who wanted to try and make their sessions, their teams, their environments, their courses, whatever they were doing, to try and make them more inclusive of people? And this is what she had to say.
I would take photos of the room and send to people in advance so they knew what it was going to look like. I would show them what reception looks like. I would give them some structure for the time that they were going to spend with me, what kind of things we were going to do, what kind of questions they were going to be asked, particularly icebreakers kind of thing. I would make a point of saying there's optionality as many times as I could. I would make sure people knew it was up to them when they wanted to take breaks. I would also want to provide quiet spaces and let people know that it's completely okay to take themselves off to a quiet space whenever they wanted to.
So I think there's a lot that I love the idea of photos of the venue, the reception, the room.
It's something I've never even thought of.
No. And
I think it's something as trainers that we take for granted. We know what the room looks like. And that's the most important thing.
But I know how appreciative I would be of that if somebody did that for me.
Yeah.
I don't think I have as much of a need, perhaps, as maybe other people. So
No.
I think I could benefit from it. Other people must be able to benefit from it as well. So yeah, we've got some courses coming up in November, and I'm going to be sending out some photos.
Yeah.
Front of the building,
Well,
reception, the room.
Well, even the idea of we would have formalized breaks, but even just saying to people, if you need a break, take a break. If you want to get some time out, take some time out, whatever that might be. And then it did make me think at the time when she mentioned that is one of the passing comments that we've had about, so particularly for some of our courses, we do a lot more coursework.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people actually quite like that. They're like, and I know you do a lot of distance learning as well. So it's a different way to learn. And if you do find those kind of intense 2-day, 3-day sessions too much or quite uncomfortable, sometimes knowing that you've got coursework to fall back on is a nice way to slow down your learning and think in different ways.
Yeah. So I think that's something that we have tried to build out. Like I say, the distance learning approach has been a game changer for a lot of people, being able to learn on their own at their own pace, or perhaps in smaller groups but remotely, in short bursts, without the pressure of being put on the spot in the front of a classroom. It's been a game changer for a lot of people. And yeah, it took a lot of effort to change how we were doing things, but it's definitely worth it. I've benefited from that as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we both have.
So yeah, I mean, we've chatted to quite a wide range of influential people already. We haven't finished yet necessarily, but people who've contributed to a lot of our listeners, whether those listeners know it or not, the environment they find themselves in, the state of agile they find themselves in, the state of their workplace, their employers that they find themselves in. People like Sal, people like Mike, people like Esther, people like Roman and Lisa, they've all had a massive impact on the change to where we are now. And that was, again, to remind people that's why we've done this, to try and bring a lot of that stuff together and remind people of where we were 20 years since the Agile Manifesto. And
don't be afraid if the idea with this is that when we tweet out these episodes, we will obviously link in the likes of Sal and all these people that we've spoken to, and go and find out what they're doing, find out what they're up to, read their blog posts, look at their conference proposals, and that you just Google their names and you'll find a whole wealth of stuff that those people have been doing. And you might, there might be people they can help you that you didn't even realize that they could. Yeah.
So, well, that's a nice wrap up, isn't it?
Yeah, that's good.
What else have we got to say? Maybe a couple of little public announcements. We've got our Christmas party. I know it's a little bit early. We haven't got Halloween out of the way yet.
It's never too early for Christmas, Jeff.
But just to put the date in the calendar, just to let people be aware, we're going to open up the social distance in for a special occasion, for a Christmas party on the 17th of December. So any of you who are listening and think, do you know what? Yeah, I'll turn up for a pint. You can turn your camera off. You can turn your microphone off. You can just turn up and just watch and observe and listen if you want, or you can join in and have a conversation. We'll put little breakout rooms out there if you want to go and join that. Well, if you have a game of werewolves, you never know. Have a beer, have a glass of wine, glass of water, whatever you want. So 17th of December, around about.
It's Friday night, isn't it? Is it a Friday?
5 o'clock. Yeah. Friday around about 6 o'clock UK time.
Yeah.
So after work, hopefully, while some people are still awake in other parts of the world. So look out for that. If you've got anyone that you think this is a really influential person in the Agile movement, you'd like us to include them on a prestigious Pints episode, let us know. What would be even better is if you speak to them and say, would you be up for it, first of all? Because then we don't have to do all the convincing. Oh, do you know who we are? Would you like to be on our episode? But if you've got anyone, brilliant, do that. And if you like a bit of a gamble, if you're up for a little bit of an experiment or trusting your luck, then I'm selling a new product that you won't know what it is.
Mystery product.
A mystery product. So, as you probably know, or Paul pointed out at the start, we do have our Agile Pubcast merchandise. We have our Agile Pubcast branded glasses and beer mats and bottle openers and so on, which you can buy for a very reasonable price already. But if you wanted to upgrade that experience to something with a mystery product, then you can buy a Secret Santa version through my website, inspectandadapt.com/shop. If you don't like it when you get it, you can get a refund. But you might want to try it. Any other announcements that we need to make, Mr. Goddard?
Any other business? No, I think nothing for me. I'm all good.
Okay, I'm not quite sure when this goes out, but if you were interested in signing up to one of our in-person courses, advanced courses this November, it's going to be very last minute, but you never know, there might be a seat available. If you want to catch us in person and come for a drink with us after day one at the end of the day, then you might be in luck. Check out our websites for details of those courses.
Lovely.
Other
Good
than that, I will bid you adieu.
Adieu, my friend. Adieu.